Everything you see around you once lived in the invisible world of thought. The buildings we admire, the books we cherish, the businesses that change the world, they all began as a single idea, a disciplined thought nurtured, developed, and acted upon. If a man can change his thinking, he can change his entire life. That's the principle. Your thoughts are the architects of your life. They draw the lines, build the structure, and determine the direction. If you want to build a better life, you don't start with action, you start with thought. There's a great difference between casual thinking and disciplined thinking. Casual thoughts are easy. They come when you're idle, tired, reactive. They fill the mind without invitation. Thoughts of fear, of failure, of regret, of envy. And if you're not careful, those casual thoughts become permanent residents. They hang around and eventually they start building. Without discipline, those casual thoughts lay the foundation for a life you didn't intend to build. You look around one day and say, how did I get here? The answer, one undisciplined thought at a time. A man who thinks poorly cannot live richly, no matter how much money he makes. A person whose thoughts are filled with doubt and limitation cannot create a future filled with strength and opportunity. That's why the starting point is always the mind. That's where the power begins. When you discipline your thoughts, you set boundaries on your inner world. You don't allow weeds to grow in your mental garden. You don't allow just any idea to take root. You examine the thought and ask, is this useful? Is this empowering? Is this going to help me construct the life I want to live? If the answer is no, you throw it out like garbage. You replace it with something intentional, something constructive, something aligned with your vision. Most people don't realize how much authority they've given away to their thoughts. They assume their thoughts are just reactions, something to be observed, not shaped. They don't understand that every action, every pattern, every outcome begins in thought. If you think you're not worthy, you'll act accordingly. If you think there's no opportunity, you'll stop looking. If you think discipline is too hard, you'll quit before you begin. The mind obeys its master. But if you're not the master of your thoughts, then your thoughts become the master of you. That's where awareness comes in. The first step to disciplining your thoughts is to simply become aware of them. Most people don't even know what they're thinking. Their thoughts are like background noise, always there, rarely questioned. But if you stop for a moment and examine what's running through your mind, you'll discover that many of your thoughts are outdated. They come from old beliefs, old fears, other people's opinions. And yet, those thoughts are writing your blueprint. They're shaping the house you're building. If you don't like the design, change the architect. Disciplining your thoughts doesn't mean suppressing them. It means observing them, catching them, redirecting them. It's a conscious practice. You start to notice patterns. You begin to see where your mind goes under pressure. Do you spiral into panic? Do you run toward excuses? Do you entertain every distraction that pops up? A disciplined thinker says no. A disciplined thinker catches the reaction and replaces it with intention. When doubt shows up, the disciplined thinker responds with evidence, not emotion. When fear creeps in, they answer with preparation, not paralysis. When comparison knocks, they remind themselves of their own lane, their own race, their own pace. Thoughts are seeds. You plant them today and they bloom tomorrow. The question is, what are you planting? Are you planting ideas of growth, purpose, confidence, action? Or are you scattering seeds of worry, excuses, blame, resentment? You don't get to skip the harvest. If you plant bitterness, you'll reap bitterness. If you plant strength, you'll reap strength. And once you understand that your entire life sprouts from what you allow in your mind, you begin to take it seriously. You begin to pay attention. You begin to take responsibility. Everything starts there, not with motivation, not with opportunity, not with talent, with thought. Thought is the origin of your results. Thought is the birthplace of your future. You cannot live beyond your thinking. You cannot outperform the pattern of your thoughts. That's why those who discipline their mind eventually master their life. They stop reacting and start designing. They stop waiting and start building. They stop complaining about the structure and start adjusting the blueprint. They understand that the outside follows the inside. That reality follows mentality. That destiny follows thought. Your mind is like a garden. Whatever you allow to enter, whatever seeds you plant, will eventually grow. If you allow weeds, don't expect roses. If you let in poison, don't hope for peace. What goes in comes out. Garbage in, garbage out. It's not a mysterious formula. It's a universal law. You can't fill your mind with negativity, fear, distraction, and chaos and expect your life to feel focused, powerful, and purposeful. The input shapes the outcome. That's why you must become the gatekeeper of your mind. You must stand guard at the entrance and become deliberate about what you allow in and what you keep out. Most people are casual with their mental diet. They consume whatever is put in front of them. The morning news, endless scrolling, gossip, criticism, empty entertainment. They think they're just passing time, but time isn't all they're passing. They're also absorbing messages, patterns, language, and energy. Those messages don't just disappear. They settle in, they repeat, they echo throughout your thoughts. And the next thing you know, you're thinking thoughts that weren't even yours. You're doubting yourself because of what you heard from someone else. You're discouraged, not because your life is falling apart, but because you've been digesting stories of fear and failure all day long. The mind can't run clean on dirty fuel. Guarding your mind is not about living in a bubble. It's about developing the awareness to choose wisely. Just like you wouldn't eat spoiled food and expect to feel energetic, you shouldn't feed your mind toxic content and expect to feel clear and focused. You must make it a practice to filter what you read, what you watch, who you spend time with, what you repeat to yourself, and what you expose yourself to daily. Every piece of information is either sharpening your mind or dulling it. Every conversation is either lifting you or lowering you. Every story you tell yourself is either a building block or a wrecking ball. And the difference is always in the level of discipline you exercise in choosing what you allow through the gates. There are people who wonder why they can't stay motivated, why they feel mentally exhausted, why their goals seem foggy. They think it's a matter of willpower, but often it's just a matter of exposure. They've surrounded themselves with the wrong fuel. When your daily inputs are complaints, comparison, and fear-based headlines, it doesn't matter how big your goals are. They'll get drowned out by the noise. If you want clarity, confidence, and conviction, you have to start with what you're letting in. You need to flood your mind with thoughts, ideas, and images that match the life you want to live. You wouldn't build a mansion with rusty tools. You wouldn't cook a gourmet meal with spoiled ingredients. So why try to build a powerful life with a polluted mind? Why try to chase your dreams when every voice you hear is telling you they're impossible? It's not just about staying positive. It's about being intentional. It's about understanding that what you allow into your mind has long-term consequences. A comment here, a video there, a post you read, a joke you repeat. It all leaves a mark. It all becomes part of the construction material your mind uses to build your reality. Some people think they can handle anything. They say, it doesn't affect me. I just tune it out. But the mind doesn't work that way. The subconscious doesn't filter like your conscious mind does. It records. It absorbs. It repeats. That's why affirmations work. That's why repetition matters. That's why exposure shapes belief. You don't have to believe everything you hear for it to influence you. Just hearing it enough is often enough. And once a thought takes root, it becomes part of the pattern. If you want to change the pattern, you must first change the input. Guarding your mind also means watching who you allow close to your thinking space. Some people are emotional polluters. They carry stress, drama, pessimism, and project it onto others. If you're not careful, their mindset becomes your mindset. You start speaking like them, acting like them, doubting like them. The people around you are either reinforcing your discipline or eroding it. And you can't afford to give your mental space to those who don't value it. This doesn't mean you reject everyone. It means you discern. You evaluate. You choose. It's easy to consume. It's easy to stay plugged in, always listening, always watching, always reacting. But discipline means unplugging from the noise and plugging into purpose. Discipline means saying no, even when everyone else is saying yes. It means turning off what weakens you and turning on what strengthens you. It means picking the right books, the right mentors, the right routines. Discipline means you don't just fill your mind, you curate it, you edit it, you direct it, you treat it like sacred space, because it is. It's the space where your thoughts live, and where your life is born. There's something quiet but dangerous that happens when you stop paying attention to your thoughts. You don't notice it at first. It doesn't announce itself with sirens or alarms. It starts small. A little self-doubt here, a little delay there, a little excuse you tell yourself to avoid the discomfort of growth. And before long, without realizing it, you've drifted. You didn't decide to go there. You didn't plan to settle, but you drifted. That's how most people lose their direction, not through a dramatic collapse, but through slow, unconscious drift. One lazy thought at a time, one compromise at a time, one distracted day at a time. Drifting is the natural state of an undisciplined mind. It goes wherever it's pulled. It reacts instead of leads. It follows instead of chooses. And in the absence of strong, deliberate thought, it will always lean toward comfort, toward fear, toward the path of least resistance. That's the law of inertia at work. The mind, left unchecked, does not rise, it falls. It does not progress, it stalls. And eventually, it rewires itself to expect less, to tolerate mediocrity, to live in confusion. That's why discipline begins with the ability to interrupt the drift. You don't control every thought that enters your mind, but you do control which thoughts you allow to stay. That's the power of interruption. A disciplined thinker doesn't allow every idea to grow roots. They examine what comes in. They question it. They say, wait, where did that thought come from? Is it useful? Is it aligned with the life I'm building? If the answer is no, they stop it. They interrupt it. They choose again. Without that skill, you live on autopilot, and autopilot is dangerous when your direction is unclear. Sometimes the drift shows up as overthinking. You replay the past. You rehearse failure. You imagine worst-case scenarios. And the longer you stay in that loop, the more real it begins to feel. That's the trap. The drift convinces you that your fears are facts. It makes you forget that you have a say in what happens next. That's why interruption is essential. The moment you notice your thoughts spiraling, you speak up. You don't have to shout, but you do have to interrupt. This isn't helping me. This isn't who I want to be. This isn't where I want to go. You interrupt the drift with clarity. Sometimes the drift shows up as mental noise. You sit down to work, but your mind keeps jumping. A notification here, a headline there, a random distraction you never invited. You're thinking but not focused. You're working but not producing. You're moving but not progressing. That's drift. And drift always costs more than you think. It costs time. It costs energy. It costs momentum. The disciplined mind doesn't chase every thought. It trains itself to return. It notices the pull and then redirects the focus. Over and over, it comes back. That's not weakness. That's training. Other times, the drift is more emotional. It comes after a setback. When your confidence takes a hit, you start questioning your ability. You lose belief in the process. And instead of taking the next step, you pause. Then you hesitate. Then you shrink. You don't make a conscious decision to give up. You just drift into a version of you that no longer tries, no longer believes, no longer expects more. That's why the discipline of thought is not just a habit. It's protection. It's how you defend your potential from the lies your emotions can tell you when life doesn't go your way. To interrupt the drift, you must practice awareness. You must get used to watching your own mind. You must become the observer of your own patterns. When do you drift most often? Is it when you're tired? When you're alone? When things go wrong? When you're not feeling seen or valued? Learn your triggers. The more familiar you become with your mind's tendencies, the more quickly you can catch the drift before it becomes a storm. Discipline is built in those small moments. When you decide to reset instead of spiral, when you stop the thought before it becomes a belief, when you ask yourself a better question instead of repeating the same old story. The disciplined thinker uses tools. They journal, they reflect, they ask questions that challenge the drift. What am I assuming right now? Is it true? What's a better thought I can focus on? What's within my control? These questions aren't just mental tricks. They are weapons. They are anchors. They are how you regain direction in the middle of mental chaos. Drift cannot survive in a mind that keeps choosing awareness. Drifting is seductive because it's easy. It feels safe. It demands nothing. But nothing great is ever built in a drifting state. Greatness requires decisions. Growth requires discomfort. Discipline requires presence. And presence requires the ability to interrupt. The stronger your interruption muscle, the less power the drift has over you. Because now, instead of being a passive passenger in your life, you're back in the driver's seat. Not because the path is perfect, but because your mind is aligned. Your thoughts are awake. Your focus is on purpose. A scattered mind produces a scattered life. When your thoughts jump from one place to another, your energy follows, and where your energy goes, your results follow. You can't expect to build anything meaningful if your attention is always divided. You can't construct a strong life on weak focus. That's why thought discipline starts with focus. Not the kind of focus that lasts 5 minutes, not the kind that comes and goes with motivation, but the kind that is chosen, cultivated, and protected. Focused thinking builds a focused life because it allows you to direct your attention like a laser rather than scatter it like confetti. There is a huge difference between being busy and being focused. Being busy means your time is full. Being focused means your time is aligned. Business without focus is noise. Movement without clarity is distraction. You can work hard, grind for hours, even stay up late chasing goals. But if your thoughts are not locked in on what matters, then all your effort becomes motion without meaning. A disciplined mind learns how to return to the point again and again. It doesn't drift forever. It doesn't let itself wander endlessly. It comes back. It refocuses. It trains itself to keep the main thing the main thing. Most people underestimate how much power is wasted in mental clutter. They try to do 10 things at once. They try to carry every concern in their head all day long. They let every notification pull them into a different direction. They allow every opinion, every fear, every distraction to compete for space. And they wonder why they're tired. They wonder why nothing feels clear. The reason is simple. Their mind is too full of the wrong things. Focus isn't about doing more. It's about cutting away what doesn't matter so what truly matters can rise to the surface. A focused life begins with focused questions. Each day, you ask yourself, what matters right now? What deserves my energy? What can I let go of? Where am I trying to be everything to everyone? Where am I spending time that isn't returning value? When you ask the right questions, your mind begins to organize itself around clarity. You start seeing what matters and what doesn't. You stop chasing every idea. You stop jumping from one unfinished thing to another. You create mental order, and with order comes peace. With peace comes progress. Focused thinking also protects you from comparison. When your mind is disciplined, you don't need to look at someone else's life to know your direction. You're too busy building. You're too locked in on your vision to waste energy watching others. The scattered thinker always looks around, wondering if they're behind, if they're doing enough, if they measure up. But the focused thinker knows that excellence isn't measured by speed, it's measured by alignment. And when your thoughts are aligned with your values, your vision, your goals, then you stop living reactively and start living intentionally. There is great power in being able to hold a single thought long enough for it to grow. Most people abandon their ideas too quickly. They think of something important, something meaningful, but then life gets noisy. Distractions come. Doubt creeps in, and they let go of that thought before it has a chance to take root. Focused thinking means holding the thought, writing it down, sitting with it, revisiting it, turning it over in your mind, exploring its depth, giving it the space to mature. Just like a seed needs soil, time, and attention to grow, your most important thoughts need focused time to evolve into something life-changing. It takes discipline to focus when everything around you is calling for your attention. It takes discipline to choose silence when the world is loud, to turn off the noise so you can hear your own voice again, to block out the irrelevant so you can find what's essential. The undisciplined mind reacts to everything. The disciplined mind filters everything. Not every voice deserves to be heard. Not every opinion needs to be absorbed. Not every distraction needs a response. Focus means you decide what matters and act like it. Focus creates momentum. When your thoughts are aligned, your actions follow, your habits form, your identity grows. You begin to see results, not because you're trying harder, but because you're thinking clearer. And clear thinking removes friction. It eliminates confusion. It gives direction. Focused thinking doesn't just help you plan your day better. It helps you build your life better. It gives your goals shape. It gives your time purpose. It gives your energy a place to land. The reason so many people feel exhausted is not because they're working too hard. It's because they're thinking too messy. When you clean up your thinking, your life starts to simplify. You start saying no with more confidence. You stop carrying what isn't yours. You stop pretending to care about things that don't move the needle. You make fewer decisions and get more done. You stop negotiating with every random thought that tries to interrupt your mission. Focused thinking is not about perfection. It's about repetition. It's about training your mind to return to what matters over and over. When distractions come, and you notice them, but you don't let them lead, you come back to your center. You come back to your purpose. You come back to the task in front of you. That's how progress is made. That's how peace is developed. That's how a focused life is lived, one focused thought at a time. Most people have no idea how much of their life is being shaped by the voice in their own head. It's subtle, it's quiet, and yet it's constant. Every day, whether you realize it or not, your inner voice is guiding your attitude, your decisions, your confidence, your expectations. And for most people, that voice is undisciplined. It's reactive. It simply repeats whatever feelings show up. It echoes doubt, fear, regret, insecurity. It tells you what you can't do, what you've messed up, what might go wrong. It talks like an enemy, but disguises itself as truth. And if you're not careful, you'll believe it. You'll listen without question. You'll accept it as fact. That's what happens when you only listen to yourself instead of learning to speak to yourself. The difference between those who rise and those who shrink isn't always talent. It's not always timing. It's often the internal dialogue. The people who live with strength have trained their minds to speak back. They've built the discipline to challenge their thoughts instead of submit to them. They don't just listen to every feeling, every reaction, every voice of fear. They speak to it. They take control of the conversation. They replace emotion with intention. That is one of the most important skills you can develop, learning how to talk to yourself like a leader instead of being led by your lowest moments. When your mind says, I can't, you speak back with, I will learn. When it says, what if I fail? You answer, then I growl. When it says, I'm developing what it takes. That kind of soft talk isn't fake. It's also then the loam. Focus. It's not about pretending things are perfect. It's about programming your mind with purpose. Because if you don't speak with direction, your mind will speak with distraction. The human brain is wired to protect, not to progress. It looks for danger. It highlights problems. It defaults to safety. That's why you must speak with clarity. You must declare what matters, what's possible, what's next. This is not about motivational slogans. This is about taking responsibility for your inner environment. Just like you clean your house or organize your workspace, you must also organize your thinking. Most of what you hear inside your head wasn't even created by you. It's old programming, words from childhood, comments from critics, failures from the past, fears absorbed from the world. And if you keep listening to that noise, it becomes your story. It becomes your belief system. It becomes your identity. That's why you must interrupt it. You must override it. You must speak a better word. Speaking to yourself is not something you do once. It's something you practice every day. It's a discipline. You wake up and decide what kind of energy you're going to carry. You face a challenge and decide what kind of story you're going to tell yourself about it. You feel fear and decide how you're going to interpret it. You don't just leave your mind on autopilot. You take the wheel. And the more often you speak to yourself with strength, the more natural it becomes. Your mind begins to follow your voice instead of your feelings. This inner dialogue affects everything. It shapes how you show up. It shapes how you respond to setbacks. It determines whether you quit or continue. If your self-talk is filled with excuses, you'll live small. If it's filled with pressure and criticism, you'll burn out. But if it's filled with direction, truth, and encouragement, you'll build something that lasts. You'll become someone who can walk into any room, face any storm, and still hold your ground because your mind isn't running wild. It's being led. Think about it like this. If someone followed you around all day saying the things you say to yourself, would you tolerate it? Would you allow another person to criticize your every move, to constantly doubt you, to remind you of your past mistakes every time you try to grow? Of course not. Yet most people allow that voice to live rent-free in their minds. That's why you must replace it with your own, a stronger voice, a voice trained by truth, not fear. A voice focused on direction, not distraction. Your inner voice becomes your internal environment. It becomes the atmosphere in which your dreams either grow or wither. If the atmosphere is filled with negativity, discouragement, and confusion, then growth becomes nearly impossible. But if it's filled with belief, order, and discipline, then anything becomes possible. And that environment isn't built by chance. It's built by choice, by the words you choose to speak, by the story you choose to reinforce, by the identity you decide to live from. The world is noisy. Life is unpredictable. But the one conversation that is always in your control is the one you have with yourself. And if you want to live a focused, strong, intentional life, you must learn to lead that conversation. Not emotionally, but deliberately. Not based on what you feel, but based on what you know. You must remind yourself of your values. You must reinforce your vision. You must choose words that serve you, not sabotage you. You must speak life, even when it feels like nothing is growing. Speak order, even when life feels chaotic. Speak purpose, even when you feel lost. Speak identity, even when you feel unsure. Because the voice that guides your life is not the loudest one you hear. It's the one you listen to most consistently. And that voice can be yours if you choose to lead it. The mistake most people make when it comes to personal growth is thinking that one powerful moment of inspiration is enough to change their life. They read a book, hear a speech, make a declaration, and for a few hours or even a few days, they feel unstoppable. But then life returns to normal. The stress comes back, the distractions return, the noise increases, and before they realize it, the old thoughts start creeping in again. The truth is, you don't fix your mindset with a single moment of motivation. You train it. You discipline it. And discipline doesn't happen once. It happens every day. Thought discipline isn't about one-time breakthroughs. It's about consistent maintenance. Like brushing your teeth, eating well, or staying physically fit, it requires daily attention. You can't clean your mind once and expect it to stay clear forever. You can't replace one limiting belief and assume the rest will take care of themselves. Every day your mind is under attack from negativity, comparison, doubt, fear, distractions, and noise. And every day you must choose to fight back with clarity, focus, and intention. That's the nature of discipline. It isn't a moment. It's a rhythm. You don't wake up with a perfectly trained mind. You wake up and decide what kind of mental environment you're going to cultivate. You decide what thoughts you're going to feed, what thoughts you're going to replace, and what thoughts you're going to reject. And that decision isn't always exciting. It's often quiet. It's routine. But it's in that routine that the strongest minds are built. Not in the highlight moments, but in the invisible ones. In the choices no one sees. In the self-correction no one applauds. Some mornings you'll wake up and your thoughts will feel sharp. You'll feel focused, ready, confident. Other days, your thoughts will feel heavy. You'll feel scattered, uncertain, maybe even a little lost. That's normal. That's life. But what matters isn't how you feel in the moment. It's what you do with it. Thought discipline is the decision to lead your mind, even when it doesn't want to be led, to guide your thinking, even when it wants to wander, to speak truth, even when you don't feel strong. It's the practice of mental alignment, day in and day out. The danger of skipping this discipline is that your mind will always drift to its lowest default. And the default for most people is doubt, worry, regret, comparison, and fear. If you don't choose your thoughts, your past will choose them for you. If you don't redirect your thoughts, Your surroundings will shape them. If you don't examine your thoughts, your emotions will lead them. That's why thought discipline is daily, because the drift is daily. The battle is daily. The noise is daily. And so your leadership of your own mind must also be daily, or there are no shortcuts to mastering your mind. You can read all the books, attend all the seminars, follow every strategy. But until you train your thoughts on a daily basis, your results will always be fragile. You'll be powerful on your good days and powerless on your bad ones. But real strength comes when you develop the discipline to think clearly even when everything around you is unclear. To think forward even when your emotions want to pull you backward. To think with purpose even when the day feels pointless. The disciplined mind doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It creates mental order regardless of external chaos. It builds a routine of reflection, gratitude, planning, and alignment. It doesn't just let thoughts happen. It creates them. It directs them. It checks in with itself. It audits its own patterns. It pays attention to where its energy is going. That kind of discipline builds mental endurance. And mental endurance leads to emotional stability, stronger decisions, and lasting success. The biggest shift happens when you stop treating thought discipline like a motivational exercise and start treating it like a daily responsibility. Just like physical training isn't glamorous every day, mental training isn't either. Some days it feels repetitive. Some days it feels hard. Some days it feels like you're not making progress. But over time, the consistency compounds. The practice pays off, and the discipline becomes part of your identity. You stop trying to be disciplined. You become disciplined. You stop chasing clarity. You live in it. This practice becomes especially important when life gets tough. In moments of pressure, the undisciplined mind panics. It reacts. It spirals. But the disciplined mind returns to its foundation. It knows how to pause. It knows how to reset. It knows how to respond with thought instead of react with emotion. That response doesn't come from wishful thinking. It comes from training, from daily effort, from showing up for your own mind when no one else does. The world constantly tries to program your thinking for you. Every screen, every scroll, every conversation, every environment is sending signals. If you're not actively choosing your thoughts, you're being shaped by someone else's. Thought discipline gives you your mind back. It gives you ownership. It allows you to move through the day with intention instead of confusion. But it's only possible when you approach it like a daily investment, not a one-time decision. Every morning is a chance to begin again. Every evening is a chance to reflect. Every moment is a chance to redirect your attention back to what matters most. The disciplined thinker doesn't wait for the world to be quiet. They create quiet within themselves. They don't wait for the conditions to be perfect. They train under pressure. They don't expect mastery without practice. They choose to show up again and again until the practice becomes their power. Disciplining your thoughts is not a motivational slogan. It's a foundation for everything you want to build in life. Your thoughts are not just passing moments. They are blueprints. They are seeds. They are instructions being handed to your future. When you understand that everything in your life, your relationships, your work, your confidence, your peace flows from the quality and focus of your thinking, you stop treating your mind casually and start treating it with respect. You become intentional about what you allow in, deliberate about what you speak, and consistent in how you redirect. You learn to catch the drift before it becomes a direction. You learn to focus your attention like a laser rather than letting it scatter like dust. You stop letting the past think for you. You stop letting emotion control you. And most of all, you stop waiting for your life to change and you begin shaping it with disciplined thought, one day, one decision, one internal conversation at a time.